Asa Mercer, a man with big ambitions, set out to bring 1,000 marriageable women to the wild frontier of Seattle. Though he didn't quite reach that lofty goal, he did find success in his own way. Mercer, a New Englander by birth, had traveled west to Seattle and quickly noticed the dire shortage of women for the men in the area. So, he returned to Massachusetts and recruited 11 women to accompany him back to Seattle, where each of them found a husband. Their ages spanned from 16-year-old Annie Mae Adams to 35-year-old Lizzie Ordway, with most of the women being in their 20s. The descendants of Asa Mercer's belles still make up a notable portion of Seattle's population to this day. After leaving Seattle, Mercer spent several years in Oregon before moving to Texas in 1876, where he earned a reputation as a journalist and newspaper publisher. In 1883, he relocated to Wyoming and began publishing a public relations journal for the Wyoming Stock Growers Association, a group of large ranchers who were embroiled in a bitter conflict with smaller ranchers during the Johnson County War. However, when Mercer saw firsthand the cartel's heavy-handed tactics and political underhandedness, he switched allegiances. He started writing scathing reports on the injustices plaguing Wyoming's open ranges. His 1894 book, The Banditti of the Plains, earned him even more fame than his earlier efforts with Mercer's belles, though the book was banned in many parts of the West. During the Johnson County War, Mercer's newspaper office was set ablaze, forcing him to change course once more. He became a rancher near Buffalo, Wyoming, where he lived until his death in 1917. The eagerness to join up with civilian Indian militias often faded as quickly as the whiskey they packed for the trail. A prime example of this was the Tucson Rangers. In May 1882, former Army Captain Bill Ross, frustrated with the Army's lackluster efforts, rallied about 50 rugged frontiersmen to take the fight to the Apaches. Funded by local merchants, the Rangers set out without Apache guides, only to accidentally wander into Mexico. There, they were captured by the Mexican army. When they finally returned, they were a sorry sight, embarrassed, unarmed, and exhausted after their ill-fated, unauthorized incursion across the border. The rough central mountains of Arizona, with their steep peaks and winding boulder-strewn canyons, made for the perfect place to conceal a hidden mine. Back in 1542, Coronado's Argonauts didn't find the treasure they sought, but they certainly discovered a fine place to look for it. These mysterious mines have a way of being found and then lost again. The stories remain much the same. A prospector uncovers rich treasure, believes he's marked the spot, but is driven away, sometimes by Apache raids, and when he returns, his memory fails him and he can't find the mine again. In the 1870s, the story unfolded of two roaming prospectors, Brown and Davies, who trailed a Yavapai Indian into the steep canyons to the north of Phoenix. Earlier, they had watched the Indian trade a handful of gold nuggets for supplies, sparking their determination to track down that gold for themselves. Somewhere near the Agua Fria River, east of what would later become Interstate 17, they lost track of him, but instead discovered a granite ledge rich with veins of pure gold. They quickly filled their saddlebags with around $80,000 worth of gold and began to leave the canyon when a band of Yavapai appeared and opened fire. Davies was shot off his saddle, mortally wounded. Brown, who had been a ways behind, dove behind a boulder and returned fire. After a brief gunfight, the warriors rode off. Brown hid the bags of ore, then marked the spot by driving his pick into a tall saguaro cactus to ensure he could find it again. Brown took the gold to California, where a sample was assayed and valued at $84,000 per ton. He decided to wait until the Yavapai War had ended before returning to claim his fortune. But on his way back to Arizona, he fell ill. On his deathbed, he revealed the whereabouts of the Lost Pick Mine, hoping that another prospector would be fortunate enough to discover it. Despite numerous searches, the mine remained lost. A Mexican sheepherder claimed he had seen a pick sticking out of a saguaro and knew the spot, but he too could never find it again. The Lost Pick Mine still waits, perhaps for the next lucky prospector to stumble upon it.